Welcome back to philosoVerse podcast, where we explore the big ideas that shape our world. Today, we're diving into a real philosophical showdown. John Rawls versus Robert Nozick. These two giants of political philosophy grappled with the question of what makes a just society, but their answers couldn't be more different. Could you give us a little background on these two thinkers?
Absolutely. John Rawls and Robert Nozick were prominent figures in 20th century political philosophy, and their work continues to be debated today. Their theories emerged in the 1960s and 70s, a time of significant social and political change, which influenced their focus on fairness and the role of government. Rawls, known for his A theory of justice, advocated for a society based on principles of fairness and equality. Nozick, on the other hand, championed the libertarian approach in his Anarchy, State, and Utopia, emphasizing individual rights and limited government intervention.
That's a fascinating starting point. So let's start with Rawls. His ideas are often seen as more egalitarian, right?
That's right. Rawls's theory, rooted in liberal egalitarianism, proposes a hypothetical original position where individuals, behind a veil of ignorance, choose principles of justice without knowing their own social status, talents, or beliefs. This ensures impartiality. Imagine you're in a room and you don't know if you'll be born rich or poor, smart or not, male or female. You have to choose principles that would be fair to everyone, regardless of your own circumstances.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. So, what principles would people choose in this original position?
Rawls argues that people would choose two main principles. The first is the liberty principle, which states that everyone should have equal basic liberties, like freedom of speech and religion. The second is the difference principle, which states that inequalities are only justified if they benefit the least advantaged members of society. So, if there's going to be inequality, it should be structured in a way that helps those who are most disadvantaged.
That makes sense. So if we were to apply this to real-world issues like poverty, Rawls would likely support policies that aim to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor.
Exactly. Rawls's theory would likely support policies like progressive taxation, where those with higher incomes contribute more to fund social welfare programs, ensuring a basic standard of living for everyone.
That's a really clear way to explain it. Now let's turn to Nozick. How does he define fairness?
Nozick's approach, rooted in libertarianism, focuses on individual rights and the historical acquisition of holdings. He argues that a just distribution is one that results from voluntary transactions and respects individual rights, particularly the right to property. He believes that individuals have a right to their own holdings, acquired through legitimate means like transfer, inheritance, or self-creation, and that the government should only intervene to protect these rights.
So, Rawls wants to ensure everyone has a fair chance, while Nozick emphasizes individual freedom and the right to keep what you've earned. That's quite a contrast.
Precisely. Rawls's theory implies a more robust role for government in redistributing resources to ensure a fairer society, while Nozick's theory prioritizes individual liberty and minimal government intervention.
That's a lot to take in. Can you give us some real-world examples of how these theories might play out in practice?
Certainly. Let's take the example of healthcare. Rawls's theory might support a system of universal healthcare, where everyone has access to quality care regardless of their income or social status. This would require a more active role for government in funding and regulating healthcare. Nozick's theory, on the other hand, might support a free market approach to healthcare, where individuals are responsible for their own health insurance and access to care is determined by their ability to pay.
That's a really clear way to explain it. So, are there any major criticisms of these theories?
Absolutely. Rawls has been criticized for being overly idealistic and for potentially undermining individual liberty with his focus on collectivism. Some argue that his veil of ignorance is unrealistic and that his focus on equality might lead to a society where everyone is equally poor. Nozick, on the other hand, has been criticized for being too individualistic and for failing to address the needs of the disadvantaged, particularly those who have been historically marginalized. His critics argue that his focus on individual rights ignores the systemic inequalities that exist in society, and that his theory could lead to a widening gap between the rich and the poor.
So, it seems like both theories have their strengths and weaknesses. What are some of the ongoing debates surrounding their work?
One key debate is how to balance individual liberty with social justice. Another is the role of historical injustices in shaping current inequalities. Should a just society aim to rectify past wrongs? These are complex questions that continue to be debated today.
That's a lot to think about. Thank you for shedding light on this fascinating philosophical showdown. It's clear that Rawls and Nozick's theories continue to be relevant and thought-provoking.
You're welcome. It's a testament to their enduring influence that their ideas continue to spark lively debate and shape our understanding of justice in the modern world.
And that's all the time we have for today. Join us next week for another episode of philosoVerse podcast, where we'll be exploring a big idea that shapes our world. Until then, keep thinking critically.
And remember, listeners, justice is a complex issue with no easy answers. But by engaging with these different perspectives, we can hopefully move closer to a world that is more just and equitable for all.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to check out our website for show notes and further reading on this topic.
We'll have links to the books we discussed that delve deeper into the arguments and criticisms of Rawls and Nozick.
We hope you'll join us again next week for another exploration of philosoVerse podcast.